Welcome to Kudos NPM, a podcast exploring the future and impact of design innovation as they intersect with technology, art, and business. I'm your host, John Kudos. My guests today are Lynne and Kevin from Spacetype. Good morning.
Good morning.
Where are you guys?
We're in Brooklyn, Prospect Heights. We're actually one block apart from each other as we record this.
We're across the street.
Man, is that how you roll? Keeping yourself a distance? That's so funny.
Just wait until you hear like a 3D siren. Like it'll start from my side and I'll go down the block
Right.
on one-way street.
Now, I want to just do a quick introduction for the audience, right? You both have very, very rich backgrounds and seem to be doing so many different things. And I know your work have been exhibited in Bronx Museum, Museum of Moving Image, the Type Directors Club, right? There's a long list. And you've also given talks and workshops. You've been interviewed in, a few press and media platforms. But most importantly, and this is how I met you guys, you sell amazingly colorful and beautiful products at pop-up markets.
Thank you.
Right?
That's
I have,
pop.
I mean, I have one right here. So let me just bring it to the camera.
Oh, nice.
My wonderful assistants today.
Oh my gosh.
Oh.
So look at this guy.
Oh my goodness.
Nice.
Wow.
The original.
Limited edition. There was
my
only ever
gosh.
one.
What do you call this? Because when I saw this, is that a poster? Is that a carpet? I was like, I couldn't really tell. What do you describe this?
I guess technically it's a woven blanket. Yeah, but we just call it tapestries for lack of a better word, or a blanket. You can do whatever you want with it.
And of course, they're like letter forms. And, I think we're all in the same boat. We're type nerds. So it's just when I saw it, I was like, okay, typography is cool.
A through Z. Got it all.
So let's start with this. What do you actually do? How would you introduce yourself typically?
That's a good question. We ask ourselves that question every year and we change it. I think right now what we call ourselves is independent type foundry, general design studio, and then also a risograph, product press based in Brooklyn. So, I think our core, at least for this year, is designing typefaces and then also running this kind of risograph press, producing prints and zines and blankets, apparel, and selling them, in person at markets, in different stores across the US and Europe. And then, if you look at our history, we provide a lot of different graphic design services. We do a ton of lettering, design murals. We did a series of, lettering and illustration covers for Poetry Magazine last year, which is really fun. And then we also design computational tools, digital interactive experiences. So I think there's a lot of things in our wheelhouse from the different backgrounds that we have between me and Lynne, and we try and touch on all of them with a good balance of hands-on analog tools and then digital media as well.
Let's build on that because I know risograph is a thing now. The colors are so appealing. A lot of designers are so into it, and it's also how easy it is to use it, right, and to produce your own things. But what's unusual is this computational component, to your work, to your practice. So can you talk a little bit more about why that's even part of your practice?
Yeah, it's a good question. Lynne and I started working together through this kind of combination of art and technology. I think it was during the pandemic when everything went online. And so it was a lot harder to teach hands-on skills like calligraphy and lettering when you're trying to talk through a tiny Zoom box. And so, yeah, we started teaching together for this class that we called generative typography, which was essentially, teaching designers and programmers how to use code in order to design animations and use it in their toolbox for computational work. And yeah, it kind of just evolved from there. We taught that at a couple of different places and institutions, taught it as workshops in conferences. And then we started to just get clients that were interested in what we were doing and teaching, and wanted to use it in their websites. They wanted like unique interactive experiences for people to you know go on a landing page and like type in prompts and responses that would animate and really give more interaction than you would get with a normal website.
When I look at your body of work, you mentioned calligraphy, hand lettering, right? And that's like what everybody's doing. But also, traditionally, when we talk about typography or even fonts in general, right? Things have evolved quite a bit because I think there's this point in time, I would say in the last decade or so, where hand lettering is, becoming popular again. And, I think maybe because of the help with Instagram, things are easier to put out there. And then people are just, loving those, right? Emotionally attaching themselves to that more easily compared to beautifully typeset things, right? Even this, your tapestry work, right? That's like obviously it's not just Helvetica ABCs, right? So to me, that's a very interesting aspect of your work. Do you find yourself when you're giving workshops to focus more on the computational components, or are you always trying to integrate that, personal hand touch?
I think it depends on the context. Like, for example, like I distinctly remember during the pandemic, as we were entering the pandemic, as I should say, like I was teaching this, I believe it was a 10-week course on hand lettering. And like, I think it was week 7 or something, like we all had to swap to a Zoom platform overnight. And that experience was like quite jarring because there's a lot of tactileness to the materials when you're doing hand lettering. Like when the students can see like the pen, like hitting the paper at a certain angle. There's a lot of techniques that are really hard to capture, just like on like flat video, for a lack of a better word. And so like for something in person, like we might have more material that engages with like what affordances physical tools have and what mistakes can you make from it and what can you like harness from those mistakes to like sort of brighten your creativity, let's say. But I think computational tools, fortunately, are about the same if it's on your screen or mine. So like on like an online platform, or like a sort of like a big lecture hall setting where someone's looking at your screen and they're on their own personal laptops following along. It's a 1-to-1 or nearly 1-to-1 ratio of what you are doing versus what I'm doing when I'm screen sharing. So I think depending on the context, we change a lot for what we teach. And a part of that is like our ethos, let's say, that like the tool doesn't define the work. So like if I'm a letter form designer and I draw letters on everything with every surface, like it ultimately doesn't really matter if it's like pencil or paper, or if I'm like using a digital typeface and manipulating it with code on screen, because ultimately the pencil is not what makes the artist or the designer. Like it is like what's in your brain and the process that you take to get your idea into something more tangible and expressive.
Talk to me about your backgrounds and how you ended up doing what you do now. Did you study for this? I feel like that would be a stretch to say that.
Just studied for all the things that I could possibly do. So I guess like Kevin and I, we can go through each of our backgrounds, which are quite varied. So I come from a graphic design background. I did my bachelor's at the School of Visual Arts here in New York for graphic design. And then I worked as a graphic designer for a little bit. And then I did the typeface design program at the Cooper Union, which really started my type design career. And then after that, like I think there's still an eternal student side of me where like I always feel like I don't know enough about something. So I'm always taking classes and workshops, like always. And it might be something like I've taken like 4 full semesters of ceramics and I'm a terrible ceramicist, but like some things stick, right? Like, so I took some calligraphy workshops and then those things stuck to my brain. So like I'm cognizant that I'm better at certain things than others. And like, things that like, that things that stick to my brain, I have like such an excitement for them that I like start to like teach people or like try to explain to people what I'm doing, and inadvertently that sort of gets wrapped up in my career. So the hand lettering, the calligraphy, like those were not a part of my formal education. But like they sort of like came into play because all I needed was like for someone to tell me in a class where like, well, letters look this way because they were drawn with a reed pen like way long ago, and then I go like, what is a reed pen? And then I go on the internet and they're like, well, it's calligraphy, and then like I go down that rabbit hole, and eventually I attended the school for poetic computation, which was running a 10-week residency here in New York at the time, and then that like sparked this endeavor to learning computational tools, because at that point I was already a type designer, but I was feeling a lot of frustration that like all my months and even years of work just get exported into like a .otf, and then you can't do anything with it, which felt very odd to me, and I was like having this crisis in my head. And then so like after learning with computational tools, like, oh, I can like open a font file up and I can move the points around and I can do something with this, like made me feel like it was more of a tactile experience that I was having with my own work. And then I went to do my master's at NYU ITP program. And then, and then we started the studio. And I met Kevin somewhere along the way between my type design practice turning into a slightly more computational one.
Yeah, I feel like you had an entire journey even before like I got involved. So yeah, I have a very traditional computer science background. Went to the University of Texas in Austin for my bachelor's and master's, and kind of also went into like a traditional computer science like industry afterwards for like a normal tech job. But I think that you know a lot of my learnings were very rooted in visual arts, even though I was in computer science. I actually applied to the film school when I went to
Wow.
college, and was like really interested in being sort of at an animation studio at like somewhere like Pixar. So I think I was always interested in that kind of like computer graphics, visual art space, and wanted to like try and apply my technical skills there. And so, yeah, getting a chance to like end up doing space type was like a really fortunate turn for me to kind of revisit my earlier interests.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I did a lot of like computer graphics courses. We built basically our own like really rudimentary version of P5.js,
Oh,
which
wow.
is what we ended up teaching for generative typography, where you can like draw 3D objects onto the screen and have our own language for animating them.
Hmm.
And then, yeah, also made a bunch of like rudimentary games and like, took classes on like 3D simulations. Again, hoping to try and like weave my way to working at Pixar or Disney. But that didn't work out. So, a couple years later, I think, yeah, around the pandemic time, we started teaching together. I had not done what you might call like creative coding really since early college. So I actually picked up P5.js to teach the class that we were going to teach together. And yeah, I think through the course of teaching that class a ton of different times to different students
Hmm.
from different backgrounds, like gave me a lot of insight into how to bridge this gap between my programming background, which I had been doing for almost like 10 years at that point,
Hmm.
and then figuring out like okay, how do I bring this to other disciplines who are interested in leveraging programming
Hmm.
in their practice?
This is so interesting because I think you even on your website you kind of explain yourselves as mentors, right? Builders of things, right? Um, and now I'm learning that you guys are forever students, right? You're always in the spirit of learning, right, and growing, um, and that I think that's so amazing, because I feel like nowadays the role of mentorship is even more important than before, right? Because we have AI at play, right? So there's some concerns about what would happen to some of the jobs that exist. I always think about mentorship as a way to grow up very quickly. It takes someone reaching out or kind of throwing the ropes back, to make sure that people can actually follow and kind of catch up. So I love that you guys are doing that. I want to talk about the name itself, Space Type. Why is it called Space Type?
That's a great question. It was actually originally named Space Type Continuum because we thought it would be
Oh,
like a really like fun take on space time continuum, and then we
nice.
actually encountered the opposite problem, which some clients would make checks out to space time continuum. Because like we're like, oh, we make things with type, and then like they can be in any space. It can be the digital space, it can be the physical space. Like there, it can be anywhere, and then it'll be on some kind of big continuous, like nebulous cloud timeline in the world, or some. We had like some idea around it, and then eventually we're like, wait, no, this is confusing, and space type in itself is okay.
I think it's a great name. There's the space is like space travel, very imaginative. I think that connects everything with the computational idea that you're trying to push. Can we talk about your backgrounds? Where are you guys from originally?
So I grew up in between Nashville, Tennessee, and Daejeon, South Korea, which are very, very different places.
Hmm.
But I move back and forth like every 2, 3 years, like give or take, let's say, like up until I was in the middle of middle school. And then I was in South Korea for the stretch of the back half of middle school up until high school. And then I came to New York for college. But I think at this point, I have to say most of my life has been in New York, and I am not current with any other places anymore.
I have basically stayed in place most of my life.
Mm.
Grew up here in New York City, in Queens. Had a massive family growing up. I think each side of my family has like 12 or 13 aunts and uncles.
Wow.
So yeah, and a lot of them are in New York or in the area. And then yeah, just went to school for uh, 4 years in Texas and came straight back and been here ever since.
We had a chat informally, Lynn, at some point. I learned that you're also a dancer. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like, I forget what happened to me exactly, but it was something like my friend had convinced me to go take a dance class. And I was like, well, I don't know if I really want to, but sure, I'll go if you're going. And then my friend ditched me. So I showed up to this dance class by myself. It was like 4 years ago. And then like I had turned 30 or something like that. And I was like, I should do things that didn't get a chance to do in my 20s. And I was like looking for a lot of opportunities like that. And I was like, I love the dance class, and I kept going.
Mhm.
Meanwhile, the friend who convinced me to go has still not taken one, I think, like 4 years later. But like, I just kept going because like, I was so bad at it and I was so frustrated. And I was like, I'm like 10 classes in. Why can I not get the steps? And I think that's a big thing about my personality. Like I have this like sunken cost fallacy where like I've already spent so much time. Like the next one is going to be the one where I finally get it right. And sometimes it's just kind of like what happens with a lot of things. Yeah, including dance. So I spend a lot of time dancing now, actually.
I think that's similar to my relationship with woodworking. You see this shelf right here? I spent a few weeks just building that, but I think in the beginning, I had to learn every single tool, to be comfortable in the garage. But the more things I build, the more I realize, okay, this is so crappy. I'm going to do it better next time. So that's what happens. I start building even more things, and then now my studio is filled with things made out of wood, just because that's the one medium that I know how to work with.
But it's functional. You can put things on your work. Like,
Yeah,
how great is
exactly.
that?
How about you, Kevin? I mean, like I am a hacker when I was in college, meaning I like to do action scripting, for Flash and things, and that's why I find you guys very. It's like you sing like the same song with me, like there's like this idea of computational and craftsmanship, artful execution, to everything, but in the 17 years that I've been doing this, running the agency, I have worked with a number of software developers, right, or engineers, if you want to call it that, and I've worked with different kinds, and you strike me as a different kind. So I want to hear from you, like, I mean, you guys have been doing this for a number of years together now, So, and you find synergy in the sort of the more rigid kind of computational things with the more artful execution. So, like, what keeps you going?
Yeah, I mean, I think Lynn and I are very different personalities. I really like the process. I'm a very like technical, process oriented person, and so I like to like stage everything out at the very beginning of like every
Mm-hmm.
project and be like, this is exactly how it's going to go, and it'll go like 80-90% perfectly, and then we can like figure out the rest as we go. And I feel like Lynn uh, is a very like chaotic maker,
This
in a
is
good way,
true.
in
This
a
is
good
true.
way. But she'll go weeks without like really figuring out like exactly what she wants to do, and then one day it'll just click for her, like this is it, and then like it happens so quickly, like before like I can even like go to bed and like wake up in the morning, like she's already done most of like her illustrations or like exactly to the idea in her mind. But I think because of that, we're able to like find the right balance where she encourages me to be a little bit more okay with not knowing everything up front, the way that I usually like to find that comfort, and just be able to trust that creative process.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. No, I mean that's it actually resonates with me. But maybe I would approach things differently, So because I maybe like you, Lynn, I have a lot of things in my mind that I want to make or do, right? And I look at things like I want to be doing that, how do you start, right? And at some point I think I realized, okay, if I can't map it out in my brain that I can get to a finish line with this, then maybe it's not a good idea to start, So that's sort of where I am right now with all these ideas, because if you're doing too much, you end up, not completing any of them. So interesting that we come from different angles, but I feel like we're always driven by this desire just to make something that feels really good, and that relief that you alluded to earlier, Lynn, is like, oh, I found that.
I mean, it really is like a series of like video games, or at least like I get like a similar. I guess like if I confess, like I'm a very similar type of video game player, and I think like the types of like entertainment that you choose like says a lot about you. Like I play a lot of like Souls games, or like games that require a lot of big bosses for lack of a better word. Like some people really like the casual gaming where like you like build up things, or there's like this like pathway, and for me it's like, no, like I'm gonna be stuck on this boss for 2 hours and one day I'll get it and then like it'll be great. Which is like a very different like mindset. And what Kevin says is like true. I think Kevin's like biggest annoyance for the studio is like Kevin's like, nah, this can't be done. And then like I'll like go away for like a day. And then like the next morning I'll be like, look, I have a proof of concept. And then Kevin's like, not again.
I don't know how you do it. Yeah, I think we talked about the like our gaming personalities as well, like a long time ago, where yeah, you really like the kind of like big moments and the big bosses, and I'm just there in the corner playing like all these games where there's like 1,000 collectibles in random corners of the room that you have to find, and I'm like, I just want to like perfect the game and like 100% it, and I don't really care about these big moments and like the storyline and like where it's going. I just yeah, I'm just here like trying to like make the number go up. So yeah, there's something there about how we work that is different.
Yeah, I think like we found a good balance. Like used to be that we couldn't really like understand each other in terms of like the creative process like early on, but I think now we have this like cadence for like um I mean, Kevin definitely keeps things on track. But like it's more like, okay, I see. I was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna get there to what you told me to do. Because Kevin also project manages our projects, and like Kevin now like sort of trusts me to get there, even if he thinks what I'm doing seem a little bit random or chaotic, or just floating around like the objective.
Yeah, you get there at the end. As long as you know there's some sort of soft deadlines, and I know you're okay.
All right. Obviously, you work with all types of clients now. I still feel like I don't fully understand like what you do for a living. Uh, I know you sell stuff,
I don't
but
understand
do you
either.
do you do you make fonts? Is that what you do for a living? Do you design? Like, is it just what do you actually do with your clients day to day? Or maybe it's not a
Yeah.
client relationship. I don't know how it works for you guys.
I think it's changes a lot year to year. I want to say. I think like some years like we do like big in-person installations and it sort of like comes and goes and like that's like the entirety of like the year. I think like these days like for us it's focused a lot on the risograph like independent publishing side of things. Like this year we spent a lot of time going to
Oh,
markets, going to like fairs, applying to these things, meeting new people, making a lot of zines and illustration and things of that nature, which is very different from what we were doing last year and extremely different from what we were doing the year before.
Yeah, I mean, you met us in 2023. That typographics event was actually, one of our earlier events where we started to sell our work, both the blankets, but also just like risograph prints and zines. And it was definitely, I think, like a transition year for us. Um, we actually joined the New Ink program, just the incubator, the year-long incubator program that the New Museum runs. Around that time that you met us. So we did that 2023 to 2024. And we joined it because we wanted to sort of develop our sustainability practices, um, and specifically the kind of like art and tech, computation plus design aspects, where we were at the time doing a lot of client work. And that actually helped us realize we wanted to do more of the risograph stuff and less of the art and tech like client work, because we were able to like you know really design and control the narrative of what we were building. So
mm.
that was definitely like a transition year for us, where we moved a little bit away from client work into trying to yeah just like make stuff that made us happy and like and you know things that were just more fun for us,
Yeah.
that we could print and bring to people.
Yeah, so I
Okay.
guess like both Kevin and I like sort of do separate things as well. Like separate as in like we still do it under space type, but like if it's like a corporate typeface project, then like that's mostly me handling the typeface design side of things. And then like there's a lot of like projects where if it's more engineering focused, then it's like primarily Kevin. And then like I don't really touch it because there might not be a lot of like visual design components to it. So there's a lot of things in space type where it's like publicly visual where we're doing it together, but there's also a lot of projects that are sort of that are not like publicly obvious that we're doing just separate. I don't know exactly how to explain that, but I John, you know what I'm talking about. All these NDA projects that just never see the light of day, but it like
Oh
pays your
gosh,
bills
yeah.
to like do the fun stuff in the background.
Yeah. Well, see what it looks like to me is you guys are just having fun.
That's the goal. That's the goal.
I love that aspect about what you guys do, because you just exude this kind of, love for what you're doing.
Thank you. I think at the end of the day, like we want to make things that bring us like joy. Because I think there's like the things that you think you will be motivated by when you're like a student and like really starting out. Like I think there is this like notion of like chasing like the big projects with the big clients like that are like big and flashy. The more you get into the grind of things, like the more, at least like I recognize, like it's more about like having like a great sustainable day to day, like what like makes me come back to my desk and like do the thing that I do day by day. And it's a lot more sustainable that way. And I guess like the thing that I always think about is that like it's never the things that clients give you that like push the limits of your creativity. I think often what we find in the context of our practice is that like we'll do things for fun. We'll like make things that are like a little bit weird and we'll like put it out on social media or like maybe we'll maybe we'll like be showing it to friends or something like that. And at some point like someone is like, I want that. Like I want a variation of that. Okay, like, and I'll pay you to do it. Essentially, like that sort of thing happens a lot for us. But like it doesn't really happen where like a client comes to us and like, I want you to do this, although I've never seen you do it before. Like that is like a thing that just like never happens. And so like I think we've sort of made peace with the fact that like sometimes we'll do things for fun and we'll like put it out there, and it actually might even be like a couple of years until someone comes around and says like, hey, I saw this and I want you to make something related to it. I mean, Kevin, I feel like you have these moments where you're just like, whatever, I just made this. And it's like amazing.
Oh yeah, every single year there's like at least one project where I'm like, oh, I just made this in my free time, and then someone reaches out like, a year or several years down the line, and they're like, this is amazing. Why, why have I just found out about this? So, yeah, yeah, a lot of things that you don't think are, you know, business viable. I think are very, yeah, they end up like paying dividends down the line.
Can we change to maybe a more formal talk here? What is the worst project slash client that you've experienced? You don't have to name anyone, but it's more like the experience itself.
Ah, let's see. I still think like the worst one was a greeting card client who wanted to make greeting cards, and it was fine up until um this client, like, she kept changing what was going to be on the card, and at some point it was like 3 paragraphs, and I was like, this is a 4x6 greeting card. This this literally cannot contain 3 paragraphs. um like, I don't know. I guess like it's kind of like a boring worst client story, but it was like one of those things where I just felt like I was like trapped in like a box, and
Oh
I think
no.
that's still one of the very few times I've had to like fire a client.
Oh
Um,
no. Okay.
yeah, like it was one of those like very dreadful conversations where I was like, I don't want to work on this project anymore. And it's because like there's like too much, I use professional words, of course. I was like, the scope keeps changing too much and my schedule cannot accommodate this project. Kevin, do you have any?
Oh my gosh, I feel like yeah, all it's usually like clients that have too many different iterations, and
Hmm.
every iteration is like a completely different direction. Yeah, I remember working on I think we were working on a project that was creating kind of like just like interactive animating background for a website using basically whatever mechanism we wanted. And I think part of that was also my fault because I was trying something new that we could add to the portfolio, um, and kind of like locked myself into a corner where like we had this like really complicated animation system that I had built, and then all of the iterations are just like maybe little tweaks and requests, but then like you go on for like a month of doing that, and you're like, oh, this is actually a mistake, and I've built something too crazy for myself that I should have
Yeah.
just like started from scratch and made something nice and simple for them.
I want to then turn this around to like what is the best project slash client.
I think I'm like fortunate to say like there's more upsides than like downsides to these client stories. Like in terms of maybe this is like a recency bias, but I really did appreciate the Apple calligraphy project that I did last year with Apple.
Hmm.
And I'll be doing it again this year. I think I'm
Yay.
allowed to say that. Yay. Yeah. Like it was like very cool. Like it was also one of those things where some years ago down the line, I had done very experimental looking calligraphy. And of course, my attention is varied, wanders around all over the place. So I had sort of forgotten about it. And then Apple reached out saying, hey, we need a calligrapher to paint bags like in store for the holiday weekend, and they brought up a bunch of references that I had forgotten from my from my older parts of my Instagram feed, and I was
Wow.
like, oh, okay, cool. And of course, like they're giving me like the classic prompt of like, okay, like come up with ideas. We'll give you some time. And I was like, okay. And then like I come up with a bunch of ideas, like fully expecting them to take the most conservative route for like letter styles.
Mhm.
And to my surprise, they picked the very experimental one because often I have these experiences with clients where like they really like this experimental or sort of like out of the way like thing that I've made before, but they always want to like rein it in to be a little bit more corporate, for lack of a better word. But this was like the complete opposite. They're like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, this is really cool. And I was like, is it okay if like an A doesn't look like an A sometimes? And they're like, ah, yeah, art. I was like, oh, this is wonderful.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think Michael Beirut says this one time, that you can only do your best work if the client allows you to, and I think we as designers and creatives, we always have that 110% mentality, like I'm going to give you more than what you're asking for. But then most of the time the client would be like, no, 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 tone it down, right? Like it's that very traditional mentality. So I love that. And I think it's, when you find clients that allow you to just go further, I think that's where it feels really rewarding.
But yeah, I mean, I really love to build generative tools, like design system tools. So we did a project, I think it was last year, with a type foundry that is run by our friends, so Universal Thirst. And they had like this really experimental typeface that was kind of based on historical reference, but also this idea of like weaving patterns. And so they had a good foundation of like the historical design inspiration, but also like how they wanted to bring it into the modern world.
Hmm.
And then they brought us in to kind of build animations for them for their kind of like launch. And we proposed to them like, let's just build an entire website so that you can really control all of the parameters of um, what this is going to look like when you launch. And so I think that's a really fun project where you were able to bring in your expertise and like your ideas of like, yeah, what uh, the sort of system and the box that your client is going to be able to play around in
Hmm.
based on like kind of their inspirations. And then they also had like a really long like 3-part series of blog posts about like yeah the history of this typeface and like the evolution of it, which was also really helpful for us to like kind of frame how we wanted these animations to look. So
Hmm.
I think that was a really fun project for us.
What's next? Like, what's the most exciting things on the horizon right now?
I mean, I think our self-publishing practice is taking up a huge portion of what we do these days. And in many ways, it's it's pretty funny, I think, that the more I do things, the more I gravitate towards like what I used to growing up, like as a kid. Cause like I suppose there's a lot of graphic design majors like out there who just start out by like drawing comic book characters or like doodling things and
Yes,
writing the
Art.
class.
I was one of those.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then like, you draw the classic S and stuff like that. And then like at some point, it's like, okay, like, hey, how do I get a job with this? Like, you make, you know, you do branding, and then it goes there. And then I think this is like where like I'm like reeling back. And for our self-publishing practice, there's a lot of aspects in which we get to make the things that we want. So I guess like for me, it's like kind of going back and doing things that are not strictly related to letters. Yeah. So that's sort of like my next thing.
Yeah, I feel like there's the maker side of the house, which Lynn is like really taking on, and then there's also for the self-publishing, the kind of like community engagement side of things. So we've also been experimenting with providing printing services for local artists in New York who want to print risograph, just because it's really exploded in popularity even in the last like 2 or 3 years. And
How does that work? I mean, that's so curious. Like, you just have people in and just use your tools, or if you work with them, or
we've had a couple friends come in and use the printer if they've used a similar risograph printer before. But usually, yeah, we'll kind of just talk online and figure out what they want to print and help them understand the file prepping process and like what might work best for what they want, and then we'll print it and ship it out. So yeah, because it's in our home, it's like literally like right behind his door. We can't have everyone come in and like do their printing the way that you would with a actual underground studio.
yeah.
Yeah, so that's been really fun. And then also we have a resource, like a website that is all about tracking art markets and helping small artists and businesses figure out like what events are actually happening in their area, or if they want to travel outside their area, and applications that are opening it up and reminders for deadlines, that kind of thing. And so that's something that I've been working on this past year, just because we've gone to a lot of markets this year, and a lot of artists say like, yeah, I'm always missing deadlines. I like didn't hear about this thing until like 3 months after like they posted on Instagram. So yeah, trying to like engage with the community and provide resources that address the problems we're hearing.
Oh, on that note, I think I would also like to mention that my friend and I run this thing called Not Residency, because it's not a real residency, but like a friend, Elizabeth Lynn, who runs Design as a Party and is also an amazing designer and educator. Like there were like some instances where like we would get coffee and then we would talk about like, hey, like remember like the School for Poetic Computation, we would just get together and talk about things, and that would empower each other to finish our little projects. I wish we had that. And then like we're all like, oh yeah, but there's no like what am I supposed to do? Go to another grad school? Like, and then we're like, wait, we actually don't need anyone to do this. So like, so my friend and I started this thing where like we just like decide, hey, like the first week of this month is going to be the non-residency week, and then for like a week or 2 weeks, every morning, like everyone checks in at like a coffee shop and says like, I'm gonna achieve this for this week. And then at the end of it, we just like have like a little potluck dinner, and everyone like kind of like stands up and says like, I did this. And it's not like all client work. Sometimes it is client work. Sometimes people are like, I'm going to write down what I want to look for my next job, or I'm going to journal every day, or like I'm going to make sure that I stretch every day. Like there's like some kind of minor goal. And I think a lot of our self-driven projects have come out of that, because I think often it's like the inertia of not starting something. And so even like Kevin's artbookfairs.com website came out of this. where like Kevin was like, "Oh, I'm so tired of like looking through all my saved Instagram posts. I'm gonna make a website." And now like organizations are emailing us to be like, "Hey, how do I get like my next art book fair on your website?" And Kevin's just like, "Oh, this is just like me."
Yeah, I guess I gotta make it a real thing now. So
That's so amazing. Like this aspect of creating a sense of community, right? And I think, as you said, Lynn, things come out of this being there together, doing things even independently, right? You're like, what is it called? Parallel play, right? For kids, they don't actually play with each other, but they're playing together, right? And I think that's awesome. I feel like we need more of that, especially. I mean, with myself, my team is hybrid, so we have half of the week where people come in and we create that sense of community, and other times everybody just hunker down and work and focus on their own thing. And I think that's ability to just have a few days dedicated to do each of this, two buckets of what you want to do. It's actually what everybody needs, right?
I mean, parallel play that you mentioned is really interesting. Like, what is it, like a common terminology like that folks
It's a
know?
thing. I have two sons at this point, and parallel play is when you have kids. I forgot what age, but below 3 or 4, I believe. And then they can sense that are kids playing with them, but they're not actually playing with each other. So this interesting thing, like, oh yeah, there are other kids. I'm playing with them.
Wow. Oh, that's
Anyway, that
so
that could be a thing we
interesting.
start.
Yeah, no, I mean that's amazing. I mean, I guess like we often forget about these things. I mean, I suppose like when you're like that young, I guess like it's not like cognitive like memory that you can recall, but like that's so interesting.
If you can roll back time, like, I wish someone had told me this before, what would you say to people who are growing as young creatives out there?
I think for me, it would really be like saving all your work and not being afraid to like put it somewhere, and it doesn't have to be public, like it doesn't have to be like creating like the next best Instagram profile or whatever. I really do wish I had saved all the little snippets, all the little napkin drawings I had, and like have it be somewhere where I can like see it like sometimes, because like there are so many things on accident where like I'm just looking through like old sketchbooks because I'm trying to like throw like have more room in my bookshelf or something like that, and then like I come across like a little doodle on the side of like a like a notepad, and I'm like, wow, this is great. How come I didn't like do anything about this? And I tell folks all the time, like often like when I'm doing projects, like it's an idea that I had like a long time ago that I forgot about, and then like remembered, and then like did it again. But I wish for like especially younger folks who have lots of ideas, and there's so many great ideas and intentions out there, and often like I think when you're younger in your career, there's a lot of things pulling you towards like different aspects. It might be job hunting, it might be lots of different like interests that are driving you. Like we often forget about this, and I really wish again to like be able to look through all the different ideas and interests that you had and be able to go back to it.
for me, I would just remember that everyone is learning, and that all of the people that you look up to, or like your teachers and mentors, like everyone is kind of flying by the seat of their pants. Um, we don't really know what we're doing. We're just trying things out because it's interesting to us, and we think that it would be fun to learn or to pick something up and to try something new. Teaching for me was like really new when we taught the generative typography classes. Like all of this stuff is like something that is uh, an opportunity that we saw, and we didn't feel really prepared to take it, but we did, and now here we are. So I think if you just go in with a mindset that whatever you go through, like you're going to learn something and pick something up out of it, that'll be a step forward in the growth and the progress that you're trying to make.
I love that. So it's to stop overthinking, right? just
Yeah.
not to worry about it, because everyone you look up to are trying to figure it out.
I mean, it's so true. Like I always like thought, when I became like the person in front of the class, like teaching the class, I would know the thing. But like it's like the same thing as Kevin says. Like a lot of people, including myself, are often just like coming up with ideas like as I go. And then there's been so many like workshops and such where Kevin was like, "Wow, like." I didn't even know you were gonna do like half of that up until yesterday when you just like revised all your syllabus, because I was like, this is more interesting now. And I guess like another piece of advice for anyone who aspires to teach is that like don't wait until you feel like you're ready, because you will never be. I also run type electives with my co-director and co-founder Juan Villanueva, who is also an educator of many years. And what we always talk about is that like we have to encourage folks to teach when they are excited about like having something to share. I think often this is also true for myself. Like as creatives, like we get excited about something, we want to share those things, and then we sort of move on. And so like if you don't share the spark in that moment where you're excited to share, like it might just go away, and that might never be part of like the greater community or the design sphere or whatever have you. Yeah.
Well, I think all the introverts out there need to really step up their games and actually stop overthinking things, and just go out there. Because I feel like I know so many people, myself included. I was an introvert for many years, and at some point I realized, you know what, if I don't do anything now, I don't say anything now, no one's gonna even look at me.
Yeah, the wallflower syndrome is hard to get over, I think, where you're just like in the corner, like, somebody will know me for who I am and what I am. And often, you do have to just like start cheering and like talking about things and meeting people. And it's hard though, because I'm also an introvert. I mean, people always like think that like, because I like do a lot of lectures and teach, like I'm an extrovert, but like internally, like, I'm such an introvert. Like I'll go teach a class for like a couple of hours, and then like I'll like run back home, and I'll be like, like that was a lot of people. And then like I'll like recover for like a day and a half. Yeah.
Oh my God. I mean, I would believe it if Kevin says he's an introvert. I don't know about that, though. I don't think you're an introvert at all.
You gotta see the background, yeah, how the sausage is made. So
Yeah.
Well, with that, thank you both for chatting. I mean, I feel like I learned so much about your practice, but more importantly, I think I feel like the silver lining here is, we should just go for the things that we love, and you don't actually know when things will come back to you as a real opportunity, right? But I think that idea of the introvert waiting to be discovered, we don't have to wait per se. We just have to keep making, right? And then you will be discovered. I feel like this is what's happening. What I've been seeing over and over. Even when you're not confident with the quality of your work, your craftsmanship, and whatnot, you will evolve over time. And like the only thing that's going to happen is you'll get better. So I don't know how much you're getting better, but over time you get better, and then maybe you'll get discovered, sooner than later.
Too honest, John. Too honest.
But that's true with a lot of things, right? You really put in the work first before you see the results, right? So you can't expect to be really good right away. Okay, well, thank you both for joining me in this conversation. So if you like what you're hearing, you like this kind of conversation, subscribe, leave a comment, tell your friends, your parents even. So maybe there are people that we should be talking to that you want to recommend. So thank you so much. I'm John Kudos. I'll see you next time.